It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy Iannacco's here. Alex Lindsay filling in for Jason Snell, the bearded tutor. Stephen Robles himself. We will talk about the judge yelling, I say yelling at Apple for their malicious compliance. And already apps are flooding into the App Store with little buy us, buy here, buy buttons. We'll also talk about Apple's quarterly results. They were good, but the future may not be so good. We'll talk about that too next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love
from people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 971, recorded Tuesday, May 6th, 2025. Cook chose poorly. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we cover the latest Apple news, and there is quite a bit of Apple news. Just quite a bit. That's all I have to say. Alex Lindsay's here from officehours.global. Hello, Alex.
Hey, good to be here.
Good to see you, as always. You've been traveling. Where were you? You were in Israel?
Oh, that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. Oh.
Yeah. No, I was maybe a decade ago.
Where were you recently? Anywhere? Your backyard?
I have been mostly in the backyard. Yeah, okay. I was in Carpinteria a couple weeks ago.
Well, that counts.
Was new. That was new for me. It's a beautiful city. Really, really cool. But that's about it. As far as I've gone.
Andy Iannacco also here. He's been to the library and back. Hello, Andrew.
Hey there, hi there, ho there. I just did my good deed for Libraries and Star Wars Day, and it's a short story, but I'm very proud, and it's just happened. Somebody took all 9 episodes of the feature Star Wars Blu-rays off of the shelf and put them into like the library book sale section, okay? I think with an eye towards saying, oh, look, $1 each for the Blu-ray of A New Hope and everything.
Sucks.
And I took them right to the desk and said, I bet these aren't supposed to be here, but if they're supposed to be here, here's $10, keep the change.
Them.
And they were puzzled. They were hurt. They were saying, I don't know who did that or why, but thank you so very much. She actually said, on behalf of the library, thank you very much. And I felt
on behalf of the
I
state
felt
of
10 feet tall that day.
On the behalf of state of Massachusetts.
Actually, he's in Rhode Island, which isn't even, you know what? When you get Rhode Island on your side, you got something. I don't know what. And also here, Mr. Stephen Robles filling in. As we know, Jason Snell is off celebrating the birthday of his mama. So Stephen has kindly agreed to join us of the primary tech show, the bearded tutor himself, ladies and gentlemen.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Good to see you.
Yeah, very good.
So it was hard for me to decide what to put on the top today. We have Apple results. We have an Apple executive movement. We have Stephen's excellent piece on Siri versus Perplexity. But I guess I should really talk about the judge blasting Apple for lying on the stand. Judge Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers of the U.S. District Court in Northern California said Apple violated an injunction the court issued in this Epic versus Apple case. They won the case pretty much, except for that one thing where the judge said, Apple, you got to let app developers offer methods of making purchases outside of the App Store.
Yeah.
Apple did that malicious compliance thing it does so well. She wrote, Apple, despite knowing its obligations thereunder, thwarted the injunction's goals and continued its anti-competitive conduct solely to maintain its revenue stream. Remember, the Apple decided to impose a 27% commission instead of 30% in off-app purchases. And in her ruling, the judge said, Alex Roman, who I'm not familiar with, but he's VP Finance, quote, this is the judge, outright lied under oath. She said that Cook sided with his finance team instead of another Apple executive, Phil Schiller, who advocated that Apple comply with the injunction. She wrote, Cook chose poorly.
Yes.
The nicest 3-word sentence ever.
I mean, like, you gotta read this entire ruling because she was very, very
livid,
steamed, and was not like this is not a negotiation. This is a ruling which you have to comply with, and like it felt like every time as a kid when your parents were so angry with you that they were talking calmly and said, so because you didn't want to ride the bus. You then thought, I know, they're the keys to Dad's car. I'll just take the keys and drive myself to the movies, even though I'm 14 years old and don't even have a learner's permit. Following that, it was on and on and on again.
Judge Rogers has referred the situation to the U.S. Attorney's Office in San Francisco for criminal contempt proceedings. Apple, meanwhile, immediately appealed. Apple said, no way. However, everybody else jumped. Epic Games says Fortnite's going back, baby. And Amazon has already put a buy it now button on its Kindle app.
Yeah.
So, this is, absolutely.
And
this is what the judge ordered.
And let's just be super clear. Like, this wasn't he said something, Alex, he said something that turned out not to be totally true. It's like in the actual testimony, you knew that he was cooked because Epic's lawyer said, wait a minute, you're saying that the decision to charge 27% for any transactions that follow from following a link or a button out of the App Store, you decided it on this day and not before. Like, he asked for clarification. And so when Epic decided to sue, saying, look, you're doing malicious compliance, you're not complying with the order, they got access to a whole bunch of Apple internal communications in which, it turns out that they've been discussing this for months and months and months, first under Project Michigan and then under Project Wisconsin. And they had decided on that figure, not as he testified that, we hired an outside consultant to decide what that percentage should be. And that's why, and we decided to heed the advice of this outside consultant. Whereas all of the stuff they got through discovery was, we literally made the decision that we want to make this as painful as possible so that there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to encourage a developer to not do in-app purchases. It was like bam, 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 bam. Every point of this, Apple was dead to rights, and judge was not amused.
And I have to say, as a lawyer's son, it is idiotic to have these conversations over email.
Yes.
What are you doing? Like the dumbest part of this whole thing, and to me was why are you having these conversations in writing, you idiot? If you're going to have a conversation like this, if he goes to jail or if he has to get fined or whatever, he deserves it just for them being stupid. This is an unforced error in their entire process of this is the reason I joke oftentimes that a lot of representatives don't use email. One of the big reasons they don't use email is because they don't want to have any trail, right? They just don't want to have written. They're all lawyers, and most lawyers know, don't say anything. Every email, the thing that's going to be hilarious when we talk about this 5 years from now, all those little AI transcripts that are working for you, those are actually subpoena. You can be subpoenaed, and did you have any of those and submit all of those as well? And so the thing is that people doing that is also crazy. But the fact that they started talking about strategy over email is insane. Especially after they have already been sued once. At some point you go, I lost some data on my drive. Maybe I should never do that again. Yeah. And then you just started saving stuff to your drive again. I'm not going to back that up. I'm just going to throw it on. But it was they learned nothing from this. So.
I hope Apple loses on appeal, because this is obviously the way it should be. Here's what this is from Jeopardy contestant Dan Morin writing in sixcolors.com. I didn't see the show yet. Don't tell me.
Yes, tomorrow? Yeah.
Was it tomorrow? I thought it was yesterday. Is it tomorrow? Okay.
I thought it was the 7th, but good name.
It's the 7th, maybe. Okay, good. So future Jeopardy contestant. Dan has the screenshot from the Kindle app. He said, then I went to check the Kobo app. They also have a get book button, but they also include Apple. He writes it, Apple's now prohibited scare screen.
Yep.
Which they could get rid of, and probably should. So it's only a matter of time before everybody does this. Maybe there's some nervousness that on appeal that it'll be reversed. I can't imagine it will on appeal.
What's wild is this was from a court case in 2021. That was when
it took
this
Epic
order
forever.
came.
Yeah.
Well, and it's taken Apple forever to actually comply, because they've now had 4 years to make the changes that the judge ordered. And that's why she's so mad, because they took 4 years to deliberate this and chose the most malicious compliance option possible. And if listeners and viewers aren't aware, this was strictly just to allow developers to link out for customers to purchase subscriptions outside of an app, outside of Apple's tax. And Apple literally won everything else from that Epic case. Epic wanted a game, third-party game stores in the App Store like they now have in the EU because of the Digital Markets Act. And Apple won so much of that case, except for this one thing, anti-steering, allow developers to link out to the web. And because Apple chose to really not comply, now it's on them. And now there's lots of apps, even like Patreon jumped on this, which they were going to redo their entire payment system. But now that they can link out in the Patreon app so people can support creators that way, they're going to redo their whole app and take advantage of this. They don't know how long it'll last, but I don't think that you could put the genie back in the bottle.
Well, that's what I think that's what they're trying to do is everyone's trying to make sure that they provide a bunch of services to show people what they'd be missing out on if this goes back in. Because the reality is that while she's very upset, the judge is not totally accurate. So they did what she said. They just didn't do it the way she wanted to. By the letter of the law, she said you have to give people access. She didn't say how to give them access. And while she can talk about malicious content, until you prescribe exactly what they need to do, there's a lot of openness there about what they can and can't do. So so the thing is they did what she told them to do. They just didn't do it the way she wanted them to do it. And so she's upset about that, and she's going to write a long letter, but it's going to go to the Court of Appeals, and I would give it 50-50. And I think but I do think that there's a relatively good chance that the Court of Appeals is going to, I think it's probably 70% that the Court of Appeals will file an injunction that will stop anything from happening until it gets to the Supreme Court. But given the past Supreme Court rulings, the chances of Apple succeeding are actually probably not. They'll buy time, but they're not going to. At this point, they're probably going to lose this one. And so, but
the heart of that Apple fight.
Also, just quick note. Apple already tried to appeal this to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, "Nah, we're not interested." That's after losing their first appeal. So I don't
preemptively both Apple and Epic ran it up the flagpole and were turned down.
Two different things, though. The first time that they took it to the Supreme Court, they said we should strike this all down. The second time, we did what we were told to do. We followed it, and now we're being told we have to do more, but we weren't prescribed that explicitly in the first ruling. So the two cases are very different as they go to the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court looks at just the case that's in front of them now, the question is, did Apple by the letter of the law, maybe not the spirit of the law, and spirit doesn't exist. It's like it doesn't really exist.
All you have to do is follow the letter. That makes sense.
All the letters. Yeah. So they followed the letter. They allowed apps to link out. It didn't say they couldn't put other things into it or charge them or do it. It didn't. That wasn't prescribed in the initial ruling of what they can and can't do. Now she could rule again and say you can and can't do all these things. But to say that they're in contempt of court for not doing it, I think that's a much weaker case than just going ahead and prescribing like, hey, you got to turn all this other stuff off.
Yeah, it's not a slam dunk. However, and of course, speaking as an absolute legal expert, no. I spoke to a couple of attorneys who litigate stuff like this, and they said that after having read the ruling, after read the original order, these two individuals felt as though the judge was very, very clear about what the corrective action needed to accomplish. And the fact that it wasn't just, we'll charge you 27%. It's also, we're going to put in all kinds of scare screens to make sure the user will be too scared to actually enable this. We're going to make sure that the developers who take advantage of this will have to not only track usage of that button, purchases that happen through that button, but they're going to have to track it for 7 days afterward. Any person who buys something from this external store within 7 days after clicking the button is owed 27% tariff. 27% is owed back to Apple. Bam, 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 bam. And also the internal communications, as you said, is really hard for a judge to ignore, that they were actively discussing they stopped just short of saying, how can we absolutely screw everybody except for ourselves? How can we choose an option in which the least of what the judge is telling us to do is actually done, and that nobody, no developer and no user will avail themselves of this poisonous tart of turds that we have built inside the App Store to implement this. So that's why I agree this is not a slam dunk, but my understanding right now is that Apple has an enormous hill to climb to get over this. They have 90 days to comply. And so you're right, they could issue a stay of this. It looks as though people are betting that, as you say, let's make sure that people see how good it is to be able to actually buy a book after that's being recommended in the Kindle app and be taken to a link to the Amazon store and buy it from there and not have to deal with all that hassle and find out that, wow, Apple has said that the entire world will come to an end if this is allowed, and it turns out the sun still rises and sets.
Well, I think the real problem for Apple though is that the as it gets more complicated to buy things, because this is going to be more complicated for the user to buy things. You can decide whether that's good or bad.
No
to
way.
click out of my app to buy something, it's absolutely more complicated for me. I mean, I do that all the time with apps.
Wait a minute. That's ridiculous, Alex. I have a Kindle app on my phone. I want to buy a book.
No, I'm not
which
talking
is more
about,
complicated. Clicking a buy now button in the app.
That's one
or
app.
exiting the app, going to the website, buying the app, buying the book, and then going back to the app to open the book.
That's one app, but I'm talking about all the apps on the App Store. When I click on an app and it says, hey, can you give me your email? I'm like, oh my gosh, you idiots. And so all I want to do is click, buy, show my face, and go back to what I was doing. And
the judge was very clear that Apple is permanently, I'm reading the text, restrain and enjoin from prohibiting developers from including in their apps and their metadata buttons external links or other calls to action. She didn't say anything about what the consequence, you can't charge 27%. But she did refer to California's anti-competitive law, and said specifically you can't do something that's non-competitive, that's anti-competitive.
Right. So the what I'm saying though is that the reason what's at stake for Apple is not just losing the revenue from those apps. What's at stake for Apple is it is when you're buying apps, having to do anything other than show your face is a higher friction experience. And as you increase that friction, it's not that people will Apple doesn't just get that revenue. The App Store becomes less interesting,
and I pay 15 to 30% less on my
will you because we pay outside for HBO and they just keep increasing the price. The idea that we're paying less, we're gonna go outside and then we'll just get paid.
Quite a few developers, Spotify charge you a premium to buy.
They do, and
but
they're going to keep on increasing the price and evening it out. We're not really saving that much money. But the main thing is that as users, and it doesn't matter whether the user's saving money or not. Like for instance, I started looking after this ruling. I started looking at the apps that I've bought in the last whatever, and the app purchase or my app download has dropped probably 80-90% since subscriptions became a big deal, because I'm just like, man, I don't want to subscribe to anything. I definitely don't want to give you my email, because I don't want to, if I'm really interested in your app, I'll give you my email because I want to know what's happening next. Buying it is not the time that I want to give you the ability to send me another email. And so the thing is that I think that what Apple, a lot of times, a lot of things that make something special is a lot of ingredients. Like if you take yeast out of a bread recipe, it's still bread, but it's really hard to make sandwiches with. And the thing is that when you increase the friction for people to purchase it, it's not just that they're going to they'll go to the App Store less. Overall, as you increase friction, I spend a lot of time studying friction because it is a huge part of my business. And when you increase the friction, like when we ask someone for one more thing, we lose every question is 25% throughput. It is an incredibly, friction is an incredibly powerful tool to slow people down from adoption. And so it's really complicated. And what I would say is that, so Apple has a lot. Now, I think that Apple may respond by allowing users, which I'm hoping for, to just simply, in our preferences for the store, just say, these are the payment options I want to see. You know, like I just want to see, and it may be 5 or 6 of them. I want to see only free ones. I want only subscriptions, only in-app, and only third party. It won't be just third party, but it'll include third party, and you just flip that off, and then you don't see any of those apps again.
So I just want to say this. So going back, the 27% that Apple was charging for those outside payments, Apple argued in this case that it was because they provided value as the platform maker. And like what you're saying, Alex, is they believe they have value to developers for maybe increasing conversion or lowering friction. Well, I experienced that personally from the podcast side because we offer a podcast subscription directly in Apple Podcasts, and we offer it through Memberful. And in the podcast app, we have listeners that can very well click a link to Memberful, sign up with their email and credit card and support us that way, or use their Apple ID and payment system. And both in my current show and previous show, 2x, we have 2 times more people that sign up through Apple Podcasts directly because it's less friction, uses their card, and they can manage it with the rest of their subscriptions, which as a user, I would prefer that too. I want all my subscriptions in one place, manage it all under one Apple ID. So when I get a new device, it's all there. I don't have to log into 50 different apps or 50 different accounts. So Apple does provide value. I think they might have just miscalculated how much value they provide, and that 27% was really just a number they picked out of thin air, like in a lot of the internal court documents. But the bottom line is I think Apple could compete. I've heard from a lot of independent developers that because of the international payments and just the ease of distributing via the App Store, they would choose that anyway, even given the 15 or 30%. So if Apple really feels they provide the value, then actually compete and allow these links, not just because of the court order, but allow someone to sign up outside or in the app and make that App Store experience with your Apple ID and subscriptions so good that people prefer to do that rather than jump out.
Yeah. And
Meanwhile, the short. I'm sorry, we got to move on.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the short story is those buttons, those links are in, and will remain in until the Ninth Circuit. Apple has appealed, the Ninth Circuit overturns it, or the Supreme Court overturns it, or they don't, and it will remain in. And that's. I think it's. We can argue about the merits of it, but I think it's the right thing to do. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we will have the Apple quarterly results. The quarterly results are good, but is the future very bright? We don't know yet. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Stephen Robles filling it. Is it Robles? How do you like me to say it? Robles? Robles?
You can say Robles. It's
Robles. Stephen Robles of the Primary Tech Show, Beard.fm. You catch him on YouTube and his podcasts. It's great to have you filling in for Jason Snell. But we will have Jason's colors. 6 colors will be here, just not Jason himself. Andy Anako, Alex Lindsay, and you. So glad you're here. This episode of MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by ZocDoc. Excuses. When was the last time you needed to go to a doctor, but what'd you do? You pushed it off, right? You made the excuse. I'm too busy. It's going to heal on its own. I don't need help. That's a very masculine response. I can do it myself. I think we've all been there. Booking a doctor's appointment can just, feel daunting. But thanks to ZocDoc, there's no reason to delay. They make it easy to find and book a doctor who's right for you. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, primary care to urgent care, and more. You could filter for doctors who take your insurance, who are located nearby, who are a good fit for any medical need you may have, and who are highly rated by verified patients. Once you find the right doctor, you can see their actual appointment openings, choose a time slot that works for you, and click to instantly book a visit. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. If I had needed this product, it's what I'd use. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/MacBreak to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. Back to the show. Let's talk about the quarterly results. I have Jason's pictures here, but I can give you the top line numbers. 90 services revenue, an all-time high. Revenue of 95.4 billion. That's up 5% year over year. Strong quarterly results, double-digit growth in services. Tim Cook said, quote, "We are happy to welcome iPhone 16e to our lineup and to introduce powerful new Macs and iPads that take advantage of the extraordinary capabilities of Apple Silicon. And we're proud to announce that we've cut our carbon emissions by 60% over the past decade." You want to look at colors first before we weigh in?
Chats.
It's always nice to have chats. Apple's very spiky quarterly revenue, actually in every respect because of iPhone sales. So this is Q2, which means the iPhone sales are, kind of almost all happen in the previous quarter. So you're going to see a little bit of a drop all around. Profit not bad though for 3 months, $24.8 billion. That's a good couple of billion a week. Yeah. I'd take it. Year over year revenue did I do my math right? Let's see. There's 12 weeks. Yeah, $2 billion a week. Year over year revenue up 5%, as I mentioned. iPhone not quite half of the total revenue. Look at that purple chunk of services though. Holy cow, that's becoming more and more important to Apple. iPad revenue. 6.4 billion. That's down from the previous quarter, but that's because there were some new iPads in this quarter, weren't there?
Yeah, I think they mentioned the iPad Pro 3. I think with each segment.
Air.
They also mentioned how like for instance wearables is those numbers are kind of weird because yes, they're way down, but remember that this quarter last year we introduced the Vision Pro, so that's going to offset all this sort of stuff.
Right.
So, it's interesting though. You mentioned the spikiness of like iPhone sales. There was a rumor this year via Min-Chi Kuo in the information that Apple is going to cease that in the spring they'll introduce like the iPhone. The mainstream iPhone plus the iPhone E model. In the fall they'll release like the Pro models, and you got to wonder if that's a desire to let's make sure we keep that income kind of stable rather than count on a big payday in September and October.
The one thing that's not spiky, services, which is a very steady line of growth. A lot of that. So this is, by the way, why Apple's fighting for 27% in the App Store. A lot of that comes from the App Store. A lot of it comes from Google. That $20 billion a year doesn't hurt.
Which that's at risk too. I mean, Google's in remedies right now, and that could stop. But there's a pie graph in Jason's Six Colors article that shows, revenue by category. iPhone still half, 49%. Yep. Services 28%, but growing. But Apple would like for you to believe it's Apple TV Plus or maybe even iCloud Plus, but it's the App Store. It's games.
It's the App Store plus Google. But a quarter of it is Google. So I mean, it's not to be dismissed, and they may well lose that. Where the judge right now is pondering what remedies in the DOJ versus Google trial, which Google lost, and the remedies are extreme. It's going to be a challenge for Google, whatever happens.
And we should be reminded too that there's an open case that the Department of Justice has against Apple that's not even entered trial yet. That's about, exclusivity with the Apple Watch, third-party digital wallets, like all of that is also coming. And so whatever Apple decides to do with the App Store in this case and what happens with Google, I mean, we can have a very different outlook.
It was really interesting. The Q&A, I think that was the first time that an analyst offered a question about like the quote, very ongoing, very high profile legal cases that touch on Apple. And that was one of those areas where Tim just had to waffle.
Yeah. Did they ask him about Siri?
Yeah, they did. They asked him about Apple Intelligence difficulty. I have a quote here. "I'd like to go back to my question from the last call and ask, what are some of the learnings you had from those delays and whether you attribute them to organizational factors, meaning your management stinks, to your legacy software stack, meaning that Siri stinks." I'm adding notes here. "Or is it a matter of R&D spending?" And once again, Tim waffled, basically repeated what he said during his opening comments, which is that, look, we shipped a bunch of stuff that worked, and we expanded it to other new countries.
Yeah, but he starts off by saying, if you step back from what we said at WWDC, and that was the whole core of the problem, was they promised something and didn't deliver it, right? Yeah. Just forget what we said at WWDC, then it's not so bad.
Yeah, they were also asked about basically given that you spend, I think I'm quoting from memory here, like you spend $3 billion on like your large language models and other research, and the people that you're competing with are spending many factors of that. Is that a problem? They reiterated, both him and Kevin both said the same thing, that one, we're investing for the long term. B, we do not underinvest historically in things that we think are going to be important for our future. And third, they pointed out that, look, we have a hybrid model for this. Yes, we have our own LLM, but we also are going to be using other people's models, like especially to train and build our own internal models. So yes, we're not spending quite so much, but it's not quite as desperate as we hope that you're not going to conclude.
We spent a lot of airtime on it over the past month or so.
Yeah.
But I think what Tim says, does this make it okay? He said, we just need more time to complete the work so that it meets our high quality bar. There's not a lot of other reasons for it. It's just taking a bit longer than we thought, but
Fair.
We're making progress and we're excited about it. I think that's the right thing to say. It's probably the true, if you smooth over the details of managements and so forth, it's probably the accurate thing to say. And is it going to hurt them? That's going to take a little longer than they thought. In the long run, probably not. In fact, there's a credible argument it could help them. That they won't suffer the slings and arrows that these other AI companies are.
Yeah, and plus, I think they were also asked a question about. He was also asked a question about, do you have any even more information? In the last call, he mentioned that he thinks that there are indicators that that the AI features partially drove purchases of the iPhone 16. He didn't have much more to say about that, but that's okay because the interpretation of that would be that we don't need AI to sell our phones in the near future. So, yeah, I mean, it's fair. It's going to take a long time. That's fine. And they seem to be at least admitting that, yeah, we had a game plan and then we went to the locker room and counted our broken bones and bloody limbs and said, yeah, let's decide that our game plan needs a little bit of modification.
Jason Snell got me laughing when he quoted The Verge's Deputy Editor Todd Hazelton, who said, I'm not saying Apple's dead in the water here. Jason said, well, that's good, Todd. Probably not a thing you should said. The water is many things. It's choppy. It's chilly. There may be blood in it. There might even be sharks swarming. You pick the water metaphors you want, but Apple certainly is not dead in the water. $24 billion in profit.
Oh no, they're worth slightly less than $3 trillion now. They're only the second most valuable.
Right.
Oh no.
Right.
What are you gonna do?
But there are headwinds. I mean, nobody denies that. There's tariffs. Apple's already saying, even though we shipped a lot of stuff out of India at the last minute to try to, feed the supply chain, we're still going to have to struggle with tariffs. They said they did admit to losing almost $1 billion to tariffs already, right?
I think they said that they don't feel as though this quarter was affected by tariffs because they were able to preload their supply chain both in parts and in products. But they said that they're actively anticipating that the tariffs are going to cost us $900 million in the upcoming quarter. And they stressed, I think, 2 or 3 times that that's all just based on the idea that the situation doesn't change a huge amount from what it is right now. It could be far worse. It could be far better. We're playing it by ear right now.
I thought it was interesting. Cook said we didn't see a lot of kind of pre-planning sales of iPhones, people worried about tariffs and buying ahead. He called it pull forward in demand due to tariffs.
I think part of the problem is that when you get to the second half of the year, anybody who knows about an iPhone is like waiting. You don't want to buy now.
I do want to go back though and mention, you don't need Apple Intelligence or AI to sell iPhones. But they did really push Apple Intelligence that entire season. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times I heard Snoop Dogg say the words Apple Intelligence in podcasts and Super Bowl ads. And they created the videos with Bella Ramsey, they weren't great, but they did advertise features like the semantic index in those videos that is still not out yet. And so
I wonder though, you and I, we pay attention to this. We know it, was kind of a flop. My son just bought, and he's not an unsophisticated user, just bought a new iPhone 16 Pro Max. He was on a 15 because he wanted Apple Intelligence. So A, he wasn't paying attention to the sales cycle, and B, he thought Apple Intelligence was already there. He might even be happy with what he got.
Leo, you have Genmoji. It's probably faster.
He might be
on
happy
the 16
with that.
than the 15, maybe.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't know. Maybe he wants the email completion, or there's some, writing summaries. I don't know.
My son's 16, and he actually just got a 16 Pro as well. But when it comes to Apple Intelligence, he also uses ChatGPT all the time.
Right.
And I think for like teenagers and younger, like there is a clear delineation with what ChatGPT is capable of and what quote unquote Apple Intelligence is capable of. So while it might not affect iPhone sales, I do think it's coloring people's idea of what an assistant from Apple looks like and what it could look like from these other companies.
But I think the question is, are they buying any less Apple products because they have to use ChatGPT?
Because you can get the ChatGPT app on iPhone.
Yeah, and as,
exactly. I mean, I have a shortcut that takes me straight to ChatGPT, and I'm sitting there talking to it. So.
And
to the point of your videos, Stephen, I actually have the action buttons set to load Perplexity right away. Yeah. Instead of Siri. I don't ever use Siri. I just use Perplexity all the time, and it talks to me, and I talk to it. And hi, Perplexity. Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you up. Go back to sleep.
You talk so slow, though. It's rough. You really need to be able to speed up that voice because it's bad.
They should have better choices.
Yes.
What was your conclusion? I think you thought Perplexity was a better...
Oh, well, here's the thing. I mean, I feel like it's actually gotten... Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say it out loud. But the dingus on iPhone has gotten worse, I feel like, just by itself.
We all agree the dingus is worse.
Yeah, because even
obvious.
6 months ago, like iOS 17, I used to be able to ask it, how many days has it been since January 1st? A simple question. And now it can't answer it. It'll fall back to ChatGPT or give me like a web result. And so I'm not sure what is going on behind the scenes just with the device, that the assistant that's on my phone right now. But what Perplexity did, who doesn't have direct access to the phone, plugged into hooks that Apple already offers, like to Apple Music, to like podcasts, and you can ask Perplexity a lot of things to do directly on your iPhone, and it's so much better.
Yeah,
even just at something like composing an email.
Right.
I was able to speak for like a minute saying, I think the subject should be this, and not really any clear communication to the assistant, and it was able to parse a subject line that was coherent and made sense, parsed an email, and if you ask the assistant, the dingus on iPhone, to do the same thing, it just cannot. It put everything I said in the subject line of an email and said, hey, do you want to send this? It's like, no, I don't want to send it.
If Jason were here, he's a San Francisco Giants fan as I am, he might mention that this season when the opposing team strikes out to a Giants pitcher, the stadium PA plays a sound that goes, and that's kind of what I get every time when I use Siri. It's like so disappointing.
Now, I did have a lot of people on my video, though, talk about they have concerns about privacy and security when it comes to Perplexity. And Perplexity CEO has come out and be like, we believe tracking everything is a great idea, and we're going to serve ads, and so it's clear, like, Apple, again, just like in the App Store, here with their assistant has the ability to differentiate. They talk about privacy and security. I think people still trust that with Apple. They can still offer an assistant that does amazing things like these AIs, but with privacy and security built in, but they actually have to do it. Like, it has to be there.
Well, and I just don't think they're in a rush. Like, I don't think they should have been in a rush. I don't think they needed to be in a rush. I think they could have. I think that they needed. I guess they felt like they needed to say something. But as a user, like, again, my family is almost completely shielded from advertising. So I realized that when I asked my wife, like, do you know anything about Apple Intelligence? She's like, I don't even know what that is. I think there's some smart people that work there. She's like doesn't have any interaction with that. And my kids are using ChatGPT all the time. They don't really, and so no one really feels like there's any draw to it. But again, none of us are seeing any of the ads because we don't see ads. Yeah. But I think that's the I think that Apple just got, I feel like it just was, there's a group of people in there that said, we got to do something. We got to show that we're doing something. And they got everybody all stirred up. There's a lot of energy around, AI right now. And there's all this money flowing around. And I think that somebody just got panicked, and they got panicked enough to panic other people, which is very unusual at Apple, because usually Apple is kind of like, there's not that much excitement. There's not much there's like how do we approach this like adults? And they did not approach this like adults, and so I think that that's the challenge for them, is to slow down and just kind of keep putting. I do agree with you, Stephen. I think that the end game for Apple 5 years from now, if they can figure it out, is way better than everybody else's solution. The problem that I have with that is that they have been spending billions of dollars on Siri for a decade, and they have not been very successful at this. And I think it comes down to them being so safe. There's this incredible paper that I don't know why. I mean, I didn't read it. I wasn't reading papers back then. In 1995, Harvard Business Review talked about disruptive technologies, and they did a whole thing about disruptive technologies, and it was called Riding the Wave. And it was pre-Steve, which is important because everything that talks about disruption after Steve Jobs talks about Steve Jobs, right? Like, that's all they talk about. So this is 1995. And they just showed how all these companies before Steve Jobs was at Apple were disrupted by others because they couldn't get past their own business model. In fact, protecting where they were stopped them from going to where they needed to be. And they talked about like Seagate wanting to stay on 5.25 drives because because their customers measured the value of the drive by the cost per megabyte, and they couldn't get that density. They couldn't get the same cost per megabyte to 3.5-inch drives, and they got their butt handed to them because other people came up really quickly and suddenly took over. And so the thing is they were trying to protect a $300 million value and lost a $6 billion market. And so I think that the problem that Apple has is they're trying to hang on to this brand of always being safe and always being right and always being whatever. And they just can't get out of that box to get to the next thing. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for them. And I don't know how they fix that problem specifically.
It's the classic book, The Innovator's Dilemma, talks about stuff like that. But I got to say that there's one aspect of Apple's plan that I really do like. I don't think they're being really explicit about this, but basically saying that, yeah, we have Apple Intelligence. Yeah, we have our own stuff that's very privacy forward. Yeah, we even built our own server operating system that is AI privacy forward, that runs on dedicated servers, that was, again, designed from the ground up, that we can't even, this server OS can't even store data. It can only basically run these LLMs. But yeah, we're doing that. But you know what? If you want to run ChatGPT, we'll help you run ChatGPT. We're doing it. Sundar Pichai, that in his court testimony last week on his own very, very bad day, was saying that, hey, we expect to close a deal with Apple very, very soon to get Gemini on OpenAI's level on Apple Intelligence, meaning that if you want your keyboard editing, if you want your text editing, summaries to be powered by Gemini, great, just select it and it'll just work. That's the sort of thing that I think works great. Apple's job, we often forget, is to sell phones. They love services. Yep, they're going to talk about their technology, but their job is to sell iPhones. And just like they don't need to have their own Instagram, they just need to build a phone that takes the best photos for Instagram ever. That's their priority.
And I think that, I mean, to take that one step further, what the rumors are with them partnering with Anthropic and to put Claude in Xcode, my mind just twists inside out. I feel like the when anybody looks at the ring in Lord of the Rings, like what I will do if they put Claude, because I'm using Claude right now from outside of Xcode and it's really powerful. I was like, Claude inside of Xcode. Yeah. I'm just like, with this power I could, and so it is. And I think that Apple, I don't think that they're going to have their own version of that anytime soon. But being able to
were they intending to with Swift Assist? Were they? So this is another example, less known, of Apple punting, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a punt into the company that does
a good
so
punt.
well. Yeah, great punt.
They pass the ball to the person who could run the ball.
It's
not a punt. It's actually a pass.
Lateral pass.
Lateral pass.
So I think it'll if they actually do that, the explosion of development will be pretty mind-numbing.
I just want to quickly say that it's timely because just last week I have a web app that I built for basically timing that I run during podcasts to like make edit notes, so that when someone coughed, I'll just make an edit note and I'll timestamp the event and that sort of thing, and works great as a web app. But I said, well, how difficult could it be to basically put this inside a web app web wrapper and just have it as a standalone Mac app so that I can use all the windowing features? And it turned out to be a little more complicated than I thought. But the difference between this time trying to build something in Xcode and my previous times building something in Xcode is having Gemini in a different window and saying, hi, Xcode just vomited all of these errors, and I don't think I did anything wrong. Could you explain what happened? And then for Gemini to say, oh, I can see, okay, I know that your web view doesn't actually access the network. It only opens an HTML file that's bound into the app bundle, but the sandbox still demands that you give it network permissions, or else it won't run. And I'm like, I would never have guessed that. Thank you for telling me this. Oh, and just go into this box and click this box and it'll work. The idea of just feeling as though you're on equal footing against this foe known as like Xcode and App Store guidelines and APIs. It's just such a powerful thing. Right? So if Apple were to put that and built in and not be fussy about, we don't want to tell people that this is a stupid way for Xcode to do things. We're going to say that you were wrong. Like that's going to be a great thing, I think.
And for me, I was building this app and it's a drawing app that I wanted to build. And I've been building drawing apps since I was 10 years old. So it's like my little thing that I do. And so the ability to tell ChatGPT, I want to write this application in Swift. I need you to give me not only the code, but tell me exactly how to do this and how to execute the whole thing in Xcode. And it just, here's the cut this out. Open this up, click on this button, click on this button, click on this button. Now paste this. Now click on this button, click on this button. Now do this. And it's just step by step by step. Now all those steps could be removed if it's inside of the app. And again, more importantly, is if it is actually bound to the, not just inside the app, but tied into the app itself, so it's able to control everything that's in there. One of the things that we're seeing, there's a new graphics app that Zoom Liminal, Andy Carluccio and the Liminal team put out that is the Zoom graphics and it's in. And one of the things about it is they're writing an app for the human and writing an app for the AI so that you can, and basically the way it's all built is so that you can vibe code your graphics, but they're designing it so that you can give the AI what it needs and then just ask for what you want and then put it and then cut and paste it into the app. And it's built for the next generation. And so I think that this kind of integration is going to be really interesting.
I just, while you guys were talking, solved the advent of code problem from day 8 using Claude Code, which is a command line based version of Anthropic's Claude. I have an empty Emacs file, and I just said, well, switch to day 8 and see what you could do. And I said, well, let's see. Oh, first thing I have to do is download the input. Let me do that. Is that okay? And then it just wrote.
Yeah.
It just wrote the solution. While you were talking, it wrote the solution.
Yeah.
And we're pretty much. Do you want to make this edit? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you might as well do that. Since you seem to have solved it, it's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible.
I use ChatGPT to help me build shortcuts. And that's a great place where I would love more integration because if my app would just say like, oh yeah, use this action for what you're trying to do, but I'll use it all the time for like regex and matching text, like if I'm pulling HTML. And it even helped me build some API shortcuts, like for the movie database, National Weather Service. I can point ChatGPT and just say, just ingest all this documentation about the API, and then let me ask you questions about it. And it'll say, here, use the get contents of URL action, use this dictionary value to pull this information. And I created like a custom shortcuts GPT that I share with my private community, and I use that all the time. And I love that in the shortcuts app, I feel like Apple could do that.
Yeah. Imagine having a console like that for the user. That kind of like how Shortcuts is a user-oriented, easy way to build like automation. But imagine like a version of Shlomo that is the nerd Shlomo, which is like, yeah, here's something that I have to do every single week. I have to take this Omni Outliner outline and I have to turn it into a spreadsheet, but it has to be reformatted this way. And we'll ask you some questions and walk you through, okay, is this right? Like, what's wrong with it? Oh, well, this column should be here. Okay, how about this? Like, that's perfect. Great. Would you like me to automatically do that to every file that you drop into this folder? Or I could do this, and without even having to touch code, make your computer not just work better for every user, but specifically for the weird stuff that you need it to be better at. That is such a huge, powerful, enabling thing that I'm almost can't wait for Apple or somebody else to really crack that.
We're going to take a little break, and it does kind of take some of the fun out of the Advent of Code Challenge next December. I don't know.
It's like having the teacher's guide, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like answers written. We don't, okay.
I don't want to look in the margin, but I'm looking at the red text in the margin and it says that, oh, that's how we do that. Okay.
I think the way I think of it though is that I've learned more about in the last little bit. I've learned more about building apps 100%. In Xcode than anything I would have learned just trying to write everything by hand. And I think of it kind of like when you learn how to play a guitar and you start with tabs. You're just like, where do I put my fingers and where, what am I doing? Eventually you get into theory. Eventually there's like, you're going to go, but you go backwards. First you get to something that sounds good and that you understand how to do it. But then the next thing is that for some people, they're going to want to actually understand why it works.
Yeah. And that's one thing that's kind of cool. You can, at least in this particular case, say, well, explain to me that bit of code there. What did that do? And why did you do it that way? And you can actually learn from it. I mean, you probably don't learn as much as if you did it by yourself.
Well, that's Gemini. Just quickly, that's Gemini's default. Like, it doesn't do your homework for you. It says, okay, well, here's how to do this and this, and like, or here's the change. Here's a completed script that will actually work. But here's what I did every step of the way. And along the way, I'm like, oh, so the way that I've been writing text files in AppleScript has been the wrong way all along, or the hard way. Now I know I'll just pass that to a command line. Okay, thank you very much, Gemini.
Yeah, it's just no question in my mind that this is a breakthrough and something's happening here. And Apple doesn't need to be right up front with the Apple Intelligence. I think time. Yeah. There's time. Yeah. Let's take a little break here. Andy Anako, Jason Snell being replaced by the wonderful Stephen Robles, and of course Alex Lindsay. You're watching MacBreak Weekly this week, brought to you by 1Password. I know you know that name, but 1Password has something new that answers this question: do your end users always work on company-owned devices and use IT-approved apps? Of course not, right? They're sitting there with their BYOD iPhone, their own laptop. So how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps and devices? Well, 1Password has the answer to this question: extended access management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM just can't touch. Imagine your company's security like the quad of a college campus. There are nice brick paths between the buildings. Those are the company-owned devices, the IT-approved apps, and managed employee identities. And then there are the paths people actually use, the shortcuts worn through the grass that are the actual straightest line from point A to B. Those are the unmanaged devices, the shadow IT apps, the non-employee identities like contractors. Problem is, most security tools only work on those happy little brick paths. And many security problems occur on the shortcuts, right? 1Password Extended Access Management is the first security solution that brings all these unmanaged devices and apps and identities under your control. It ensures that every user credential is strong and protected, every device is known and healthy, and every app is visible. 1Password is ISO 27001 certified. With regular third-party audits, it exceeds the standards set by various authorities and is a leader in security. It's security for the way we work today, and it's now generally available to companies with Okta and Microsoft Entra and in beta for Google Workspace customers. Secure every app, every device, every identity, even the unmanaged ones at 1password.com/MacBreak, all lowercase. That's 1PASSWORD.com/MacBreak. We thank 1Password for their support of MacBreak Weekly. You referred to it, Andy, but we can go a little deeper into it. This comes from Ming-Chi Kuo, and so it's a rumor. The information also had the story from other sources, but apparently Apple was going to move away from releasing all the phones in September. They've been doing that since the 4S came out in 2011. According to both the information and Kuo, Apple's moving to launch its cheaper phones, the budget iPhones, in the first half of the year, and the fancier phones in the fall. It's kind of how Google does it, too. They release a Pixel 9 Pro in the fall, and then in the spring, the Pixel 9a, that kind of thing.
And also, significantly, Samsung generally releases its flagships early in the year. So maybe I don't think they're having a lot of problem getting people to like stick with iPhone and not switch to Samsung, but that might be a factor too. Again, the first thing I thought was that they don't like that big spike every October, and they would much rather have a smooth, consistent income. And again, given that we saw that chart that, God, they cannot get that iPhone part of the pie any smaller than half. Given how big a contributor it is, that's probably will make a less bumpy road for all their financials, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and the information also says, well, and it's tough. The marketing has to do everything all at once, especially if you're going to do a very different high-end iPhone in 2027, a folding iPhone, which everybody seems to agree they're going to. It makes sense to spread the resources, marketing resources, and so forth out throughout the year.
Actually, you know what? That makes me think about something. That the folding iPhone is predicted to be costing like $2,500, like absolutely like the most expensive iPhone ever. Maybe that's another way of trying to. They'll still have a big spike, but now they have to deal with the fact that there's going to be a high fashion iPhone Air, according to rumor. There's going to be a folding phone that's going to be super expensive. That says we need a more consistent stream of income from iPhone instead of now this incredible Everest style spike that will come after we introduce these two new models.
Yeah, that, by the way, that's what Samsung charges for its Samsung Fold. So that's $2,500 is the going rate. Let me correct myself. Next year for the foldable phone is what Wayne Ma is saying in the information. I think others are saying as well, including Bloomberg's Berman, Mark Gurman of Bloomberg. So Wayne Ma, writing in the information, says the level of consumer demand for the thin iPhone is so uncertain that Apple's manufacturing partners are dedicating only about 10% of their production capacity to the new model. Most of the capacities for the iPhone 17 Pro Max and Pro, which I didn't realize this, that even though these are the most expensive iPhones currently, they are the best sellers. 40% of the iPhones are Pro Maxes, 25% are Pros. At least that's what the production is going to be.
I'm curious with that 17 Air. I mean, being super thin, it'll differentiate by looks, but like battery life, how is that?
Well, they already say they're already saying battery life will suffer.
Would any of you be attracted to a thin iPhone? Like, is that something that people want?
Well, if somebody doesn't travel, maybe if they are often near a charger.
Yeah, I would go thicker with more battery or more power or more.
But you're not a fashion plate, Alex. Excuse me for saying that.
No. I would be curious. It'll be interesting to see when they put it out whether people go for more power or more. I'd rather have, again, I just want, all I care about, as I've said before, is the camera. Like, just make the camera bigger, faster. Like that's the thing that matters. And so I don't want to give up anything.
Well, you don't have to, as long as people have a choice. Like, I like the idea of Apple, given how great they are at design, of making something that you just want to own. If you're willing to give up a few hours of battery life, that's great. Buy the fashion phone. If you want something that will definitely give you all day supply, then you don't have to take the hit. So
Ma also says in the information, Wei Ma also says that the way the manufacturing works, they ramp up in the summer. They crank them out in the fall, and then things slow down in January, making it difficult for Apple's manufacturing partners to keep the same amount of workers and equipment operating year-round. So that's one way to kind of keep year-round manufacturing happening.
I wonder if the globalization is having some sort of effect too. One of the more interesting things that came out of the call was that moving forward, Apple wants to have all U.S. bound hardware and iPhones manufactured in India and Vietnam. Rest of the world's phones and devices will be manufactured by China. So I wonder if that's also if there's a factor of how do we balance this new capacity and the workforce that is unique to those countries when they're expecting people to actually be able to crank out at max capacity versus there's a month-long holiday in which we're probably not going to be able to get much done.
Yeah. So if there is a schedule change, it won't happen till the iPhone 18. So it won't happen. Base iPhone 18 launch in 2027, spring 2027. And then the Pro models 6 months earlier in the fall of 2026, which kind of makes sense. Apple loses a big court case in the UK to what some have called a patent troll. London Court of Appeals rules that Apple pays Optis a $502 million lump sum. The patent is essential, they say, to certain technological standards like 4G. So this is a significant amount of money, even for a company as loaded as Apple.
And that's the classic company that buys up a whole bunch of mobile patents and goes fighting. So
Apple says, we're disappointed by this decision, and we plan to appeal. Optis makes no products. Their sole business is to sue companies using patents they buy.
I do think that, again, this gets back into the letter of the law. This is just the way we use patents today is not the way they were designed to be used,
Right.
And I think that we really need to think about people needing to take action on a patent over some certain period of time, or it invalidates the patent. Like you can't just come up with an idea. You actually have to prove that, you should be protected to come up with that idea, but you should have 3 years or 4 years to show action to move to market. And it can be anything. You can be doing things with it. Because right now, what this company does, and what a lot of companies do, is they just buy these all up and let them sit on the rack and figure out who they can sue. That's not taking action. Like you need to have a lab that's doing something, that's putting it together, that costs you money. Before I just think that the idea that you can just come up with an idea and then sit on it just is crazy.
Yeah,
it really it degrades our ability to innovate.
Yes, I think we all agree. What is this thing that Apple is launching? The Celebrity Snapshot.
This website is one of the most insufferable, only because, I would almost like it. Basically, what you can do is go to this website, click one of these faces, and it will tell you what Apple Music is available by them, what Apple TV shows they're in, even what Apple podcasts they've been in, which is kind of cool.
It's just their connection to Apple.
If you click one, you'll just see all the Apple stuff. But you can't search. There's no just straight text list of people's names. So if you miss Messi or whatever, you have to wait till he slowly comes around.
Slowly scrolls back.
Of the thing. But it is kind of cool.
It's like a sushi restaurant on conveyor belt.
Yeah, it's very, very
it's
slow.
conveyor belt sushi.
Yeah. But if you go to the bottom, there's what podcast interviews they've been, and you can go to that episode of.
It's called snapshot.apple.com, and it's just you're right. It's this. So I can't I have to wait till...
Yeah, you can't drag, you can't scroll. You just have to wait till it slowly rolls.
Who thought this was a good idea?
Well, at the Apple podcast, I like if I want to see an interview with Messi or Kate Blanchett, that's cool. I'd be curious so if they curate that stuff, but
it's just so slow moving, and there's no way I can...
Yeah.
I just have to sit here and watch.
Just gotta wait.
This is a marketing thing, not a tool of any
And if you don't
kind.
like Seth Rogen, you got to spend 18 seconds thinking about how much you don't like Seth Rogen.
And why are they putting Drake in that jacket? That's the meme. The meme Drake.
God. I didn't think about that.
It's a little
is
weird.
that the best you could? Some people are in little dots. Some people are full tile. It's just this is whoever designed this.
My guess is that with some of those, they didn't have an image that they felt like was good enough to do
they put
something
it in a
outside.
dot.
They put it in the dot when they didn't have. As someone who's had to do lots of this,
Poor Jennifer Aniston is only in a dot, but Beyonce gets a full tile with a horse.
Probably because they had done
Because she's
something.
the queen, Leo.
Well, they probably had a different photo, a better photo, or whatever they could do.
It's not even a good photo of Jennifer Aniston, I might add.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Which is very strange.
It does look like they pulled that off Google Images or something. That's kind of weird.
Well, they had to have rights to it, obviously.
Obviously, you reach out to the artist management and they send you something, and then now what will happen is the artist management will ping Apple and go, "Hey, what's the deal?" And Apple will go, "Well, send me a better photo," and then they will, and then it'll update. This is how this works. I'm just telling you. Watch all those.
Hi, I'm calling for Brie Larson. I'm with Brie Larson's team. That is the worst picture ever.
And Apple.
Sorry.
Oh, they have the Mac reaction.
What Apple will go back and go, "Oh, we're really sorry. We're happy to have her come into one of our studios. We'll do a photo shoot with her, and we'll put up something nicer." And they'll go, "Oh, that's so great!" And it lets Apple chit chat with them and talk to them. It's all
worth sitting here to watch this incredibly slow scroll just to see that Bad Bunny is full screen, where Ariana Grande is not even a dot. What the hell's going on there? Just a light.
That photo is at least 2 noses old. You need to update it, man.
Yeah, really.
It's probably the image again that they had from their management. And
would you know that Roger Federer was a tennis player from that picture of him in his suit and tie? I don't know. Hi, Elton. Yeah. That was a few years ago.
I've never even gotten this far. I've never let it scroll this far. I didn't realize Elton John.
Well, I want to know if there's an end. Poor Lady Gaga's having a bad hair day. Jeez.
So they have way more than you can just see. That's why just put a full list. Just do an alphabetical list.
Yeah, there's no fast forward. There's only a pause button. It's moving too fast. Slow down.
It's a crazy idea. Like, why can't you just jump to the next window? Or just swim. nutty. It's a nutty design.
You think this is a way to basically get people more engaged in all of their services? Like maybe people are using Apple TV Plus, but they're not using Apple Podcasts. So let's try to engage them this way. And if so, how would that be an answer? But I'm with you, Steven. It's like I'm trying to figure out what. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's stupid. I'm just saying it's well done for what it is. I just don't know why it exists.
Could you go any slower?
I don't know where you would find that page either, because it's not like linked on the homepage.
Snapshot.apple.com for those who wish to enjoy.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't seem like they're publishing it, like promoting it really yet, but
it's not in alphabetical order. So that's another thing. I mean, I don't know what the order is. It's just random.
I don't know.
Can we just sit here and watch for a while?
I'm way too invested. We have
a little ASMR music.
I'm mesmerized.
Oh, Vince
Who's going to be
Vaughn.
at the end of this, or what's going to happen at the end? Is it going to wrap around, or
You might be at the end, Leo. Maybe
It's just going to stop.
Morgan Freeman's there. They put Morgan Freeman so far into the scroll.
Poor Morgan.
He should
No
be at
one's
the
ever
end.
getting there.
If you make it to the end, it should be Morgan Freeman. He should say,
And what is the
"You've reached
Billie
end of all
Eilish
creation
picture?
in reality?"
That's nothing. There's not a
Time
picture. There's a
was.
black
And
thing.
you can't
a
go
dot.
back. There is only forward, and this is the end. I'm sorry to be the one to break.
Oh, we're repeating. Finally.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there we
We're
go,
back
yeah.
to Austin Butler and Sabrina Carpenter,
So
the
Morgan
top
Freeman was
two,
the end.
top two stars.
He was the end.
I was just joking, but that was a
So
good
Morgan Freeman and Billie Eilish at the end.
It's hilarious.
Well, I'm sure we enjoyed that trip down Snapshot Lane, everybody.
Somebody worked hard on it. They did a good job for what they were told to do. They did a really good job of it. We're not making fun of you.
I think they
sir.
vibe coded it, to be honest. They weren't paying much attention.
Well, a lot of people have just been let go from the AI part, Apple Intelligence. Maybe they just need, look, I need to hold on to my office and my parking space. Give me something, anything to do.
Gosh. All right. Let us take a break and return with the victory lap for Mark Zuckerberg. He was mad about Apple, hopping mad about Apple in the interview Mark did with Ben Thompson of Stratechery. We'll talk about that and a lot more in just a bit. Our show today brought to you by Melissa. Happy birthday, Melissa, celebrating 40 years. I thought when we celebrated our 20th, that was a big deal. 40 years as the trusted data quality expert. Whether it's manufacturing and supply chain management or the healthcare industry, AI now has the power to boost efficiency. We've seen it, right? Personalize customer experiences and spark innovation. But using poor quality data can result in expensive, embarrassing mistakes. In areas like healthcare, using AI models with inaccurate data can be worse. It can result in a wrong diagnosis. A recent study found that only 4% of companies considered their data ready for AI models. 4%! Even the most advanced AI models can't correct underlying data quality issues. That's where Melissa comes in. Imagine having a data expert that never sleeps. Melissa's intelligent system verifies identity to prevent fraud in gaming operations, ensures valid patient and medicine identification in healthcare systems, securely updates and verifies constituent data across government databases. Know Your Business enables verification and monitoring for financial institutions. Melissa guides you through complex data management with ease, making advanced data quality accessible to everyone, from small businesses to enterprises. And with real-time data validation, comprehensive enrichment, cross-reference verification with gold standard reference data, and intelligent anomaly detection, it's no wonder why Melissa is the trusted data quality expert worldwide. And don't worry, Melissa securely encrypts all file transfers and has an information security ecosystem built on the ISO 27001 framework, adherence to GDPR policies, and SOC 2 compliance. Contact Melissa's team to learn how they can elevate your business and improve your data quality. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit. That's melissa.com/twit. We thank them so much for supporting MacBreak Weekly. melissa.com/twit. Some more leadership changes. Boy, Apple's just almost feels like reorganizing everywhere. Apple Music and the Global Affairs divisions are the latest to have changes. Music, which now is co-managed by longtime executive Rachel Newman, and they brought in a TikToker Former TikTok music veteran Ole Obermann. Global Affairs reorg adjusts how government relations teams across Europe, Asia, and China are managed. So I think the music thing is the most interesting, bringing in the former global head of music business development at TikTok from 2019 to 2025. During his tenure at TikTok, Obermann was instrumental in driving the platform's music strategy and negotiated significant licensing agreements, including the reinstatement of, remember this, when UMG said we're going to pull out of TikTok, the big fight, he brought him back. Former chief digital officer at Warner Music Group. He had strategic positions at Sony Music as well. So he's a music guy. Don't know what this means.
You think it's, I was about to think, do you think it's his management or just his contacts? Either one could be valuable enough.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to bring back Ping.
And his co-manager, Rachel Newman, has been at Apple for 16 years. So, she was at iTunes. She joined the company in 2009 as iTunes Australia, New Zealand manager for music. So she's a company person. And I think you're bringing in somebody like Ole is saying, yeah, we want to try something new. We want to make maybe more deals with record companies. What do you think, Alex? You have some.
I think that obviously he proved to me making a deal with the record company is hard.
Yeah, the fact that he got UMG back in the fold,
to get them to come back and do something reasonable, I think was there. I think that also the knowledge of how TikTok approaches that market, I think, is really interesting. To Stephen's point, the problem for Apple is Ping. Like, I think that there's so much scar tissue there.
Did you have to say the P word? Okay.
I know.
Don't
exactly.
say the third time, please.
It's hard for them.
You may invoke
God knows what will.
So I think that's the challenge, is that it's very, very hard to start a new social network. So it's probably not something there. But how do you liven up music in a way that makes it more interesting for the artists?
I love what they're doing with Apple Classical. Andy, you've probably noticed this. They have, not only do they have like the entire liner notes and everything, but in some pieces when you're listening to it, they will have a movement by movement text description.
Yeah.
Instead of the lyrics in a song describing what you're listening to in the movement. I think that's fantastic. Very educational.
It shows that they didn't just buy it for the content libraries and the licensing deals. They've actually been putting money into this and developing it. So that shows you how much of their future they want to put into services.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It could also be a play to try and reach the TikTok generation, because Spotify still has a hold on like the playlist curation, and you'll see a lot of people say the only reason I'm still with Spotify is playlists. And so maybe it's having more of a finger on the pulse of what people want from those playlists, especially younger audiences. And if you look at Apple events recently, you see a lot more like TikTok influencers and short form video creators, and they might want to do something with Apple Music and that genre of content to try and get Apple Music in front of more people using those avenues.
It feels like Apple might be having some ambitions in the
I think this gets
social
back into
direction.
It could be, but this gets back into where Apple's really blind spot is, which is uncurated content is not their it's not their jam, and so they always, anytime you talk to someone at Apple, they're always like, well, it's it's curated and we're going to make sure that it's great and it's safe and all the other things. And so it becomes very hard. Like, one of the things that I think is really interesting in TikTok right now is there's this growing popularity of DJs that were oftentimes they were just radio jocks. You saw this, like the radio jocks would just take a phone and set it open while they're in their studio doing the morning show, right? And so you just kind of see them doing whatever they're doing. But now people are former radio jocks and people who wish they were radio jocks. You can see the difference really quickly, by the way. A former radio jock, the level of understanding how to do this is so much higher for someone who's done 2,000 shows than someone like I could do the same thing he can do, and they go on and it's very uncomfortable to watch. To make it work, there is a certain muscle memory to it. But you're seeing these radio jocks from album-oriented rock and so on and so forth just throwing up. I'm just doing the show that I used to do on radio on TikTok, and I think they're taking advantage of the fact that TikTok doesn't seem to really enforce anything related to songs as long as it's live. So they're not, so people are just playing whatever they want to play inside of that live stream. They're doing like a whole show, like a 2-hour show live on TikTok, and it just sounds like radio. I think Apple could definitely, I think that there's a real opportunity there to build a live show. I don't think you need to play the songs live. I think you could, but I think that there is a place where people just want a curator to talk to them about the music and have the radio experience without ads. Like if you gave someone talking, when I was growing up, and then when I was in radio, we had Rock Over London, and Rock Over London, hello, this is Graham Dean, and you're listening to Rock Over London, and the dong, and they would play us all the cool songs that were coming out of Manchester and everything else. And Sunday night we would listen to that, but it was interviews and it was talking about the bands. And
did you ever listen to Radio Caroline, the pirate radio ship?
You didn't. No, but did you listen to Rock Over?
No,
Rock Over London was an '80s thing. It was
it '80s? Oh, okay.
It was '80s. It was '80s. It was gone. I don't know when it was gone. I do know that if you take the Rock Over London CDs that come to the radio station and you melt them over a hot flame and put them between two shot glasses, you can make these Rock Over London shot glasses that everyone's like, how did you get that? And so not that I've ever did that, so anyway, so
I have no idea.
Anyway, so it was really funny to spend your childhood listening to Rock Over London and then end up at a radio station where you were playing Rock Over London. Anyway, so but I think that kind of experience of this curated, and people have cobbled them together. There's some people who are doing playlists, but I think that tightness is still something that would be an opportunity to tie people in. I will say that I don't know what Apple's doing with the recommendation engine, but I'm getting to the point where I was listening to something. My daughter and I listen to, we trade music back and forth when we're driving, and I was like, did you pick all these songs? And she's like, no, I just let it run. And it has gotten so good where it just sounds like it's starting to really tune in. And I think that my daughter is starting to say that the Spotify and Apple playlist, the suggestions are starting to get pretty close, and that's the thing that's really interesting.
Are there people on TikTok playing recorded music for hours at a time, like DJs?
Oh yeah.
That's really interesting.
I'm really tempted to do it. Like I have to admit that it's kind of fun
bring
to do,
back your heyday, your glory days.
Go back and just go like Saturday night and just do a show or something like that. It'll be fun.
You could sit on it and just listen.
Yeah, you could just turn it on and just listen to the.
That's a new model for these guys. That's very interesting.
And
by the way,
like you click into it, it's like, oh my gosh, it's so
maybe
many.
You didn't notice this. Extended the deadline that he's already extended. TikTok is not going away.
I think he's just hoping we forget about the whole thing.
Yeah, TikTok's not going away.
He's just going to keep extending it, and then we're all going to just forget about
Congress schmongress.
Yeah.
He loves it because it helped him get elected. And Jeff Yass, who's a big Republican contributor, who's contributed millions to Trump, is a 35% owner of TikTok. So I think TikTok's here to stay. I think that's very interesting. They're doing really radio, basically.
Yeah, I mean,
Apple's got to be. In fact, I figure Ole Oberman probably left TikTok thinking, "Oh, it's over," and now he's saying, "Wait a minute, it's not over." What could Apple do? It would be pretty hard to make those. Kinds of deals.
I think that there's
TikTok backed into that.
No, I think that but figuring out how you. Again, I don't know how you do it because TikTok did it by breaking a bunch of rules and just making aggressive moves and just letting people do stuff, and that's just really not Apple's jam. So I think that the problem is that Apple doesn't really they're too tight-laced to do that process. But I do think that the artists are still hungry to figure out how they can make more money. Like how do I engage fans more? How do I do those things? And I think having some from TikTok definitely understands engagement. So it's just a matter of figuring out what that looks like. I don't know what the answer is, to be honest. I do think that there are things that Apple could add to Apple Music that would make it more sticky. There's, I think relatively simple things that like crossfades. I know that sounds like a crazy thing, but here's the reason crossfade is so important is that right now they just have blends, it's like dumb blends. But when we used to make mixtapes, I used to make mixtapes as a DJ. And so I would mix everything together. Like I would actually, like mix the thing. I would go and oftentimes do it in Pro Tools because I was one of the only people in Pittsburgh that had Pro Tools. And so I would sit there and build my mixtapes with Pro Tools, and I could build custom this song goes with this song, but only at this pace, and it doesn't take very much. It's a little B-spline, that all you got to do is pull that, but you got to have a little bit of control over how fast it gets from one place to the other. You put that into your playlist and no one's ever going to leave ever. Because once you go through the trouble of mixing all your songs just the way you want them, you can't just take the list and move it to Spotify. You can't, like it's like the lock-in is concrete, and so people start going through the trouble of doing that. So I think that that kind of thing, giving people a way to do live again, live DJing where maybe they just put in their own 2 cents and then they play songs that are still coming out of the library. And so that they get they get something out of it. The artist gets gets tracking, so there's a lot of things that could be done there that would be really interesting that they haven't done yet. So I do think Apple has fallen way behind in podcasting. Like, I think that's kind of, YouTube and, YouTube has kind of exploded there. I know that we're, Substack is, picking up speed really quickly, in the area of supporting a lot of creators in a lot of different ways. And so I think between those two and Spotify, of course, I think that Apple, the problem that Apple has is they're just not putting out features fast enough. Like, hey, I want to do video as a special feature. Oh, we can't do that. And then you're just kind of like, okay. And they haven't been able to do that for years now. And it's clear that, and I think that, a lot of people are talking about the fact that video is the next. I mean, I know, Leo, you won't believe this. This is gonna shock Leo, but people are saying that video is the next next big thing in podcasting. Is video, and
So I was just at Podcast Movement last month, and yes, that's what everyone's saying is video. And to the Apple Podcast point,
I'm glad I wasn't there. I would have probably burst a socket.
Whenever I talk about Apple needing to add things like video, a lot of people ask, like, well, do we just expect them to pay for hosting or whatever? And it's like, Spotify is doing this right now for free. So if you're a creator, I can create a Spotify for Creators account totally for free, host my audio, and upload my full video, and Spotify just handles it all. And now
and they're inserting ads into it, right? Or they're putting them before, after, around.
You can choose to monetize
what
through
they're
Spotify,
getting
but mine don't.
Is something Apple probably is. Well, maybe Apple would want it. They're getting information because eventually they do want to put ads. They want look. There's two ways Spotify makes money: by inserting ads or by getting a paid subscription out of you. And most giving this stuff away is smart. I mean, they bought Anchor FM. That turned into an audio podcast platform, and now they're doing video too. And they're getting, I'm sure, enough information. Although, remember, Stephen, that they fired everybody in the podcast division.
Well, and most creators are too small to get like sponsors, and so monetizing through Spotify does allow a lot of creators,
it's just like YouTube,
for the entry level. But for someone like me, I want to be able to host my podcast somewhere else, have that RSS feed, and Spotify lets me do that. I can host with Transistor.
That's what we do as well.
Yeah, give it to Spotify, and then once that episode hits the RSS feed, Spotify lets me upload the video. And that's all I really want for Apple Podcasts to do. Let me attach a video to the episode once it hits in Podcast Connect. But they still do things like strip the chapters out of my subscriber audio. And so it's little things like that hopefully they can accelerate those features a little more so creators want to be on the platform.
I am no expert on what's going on in the podcast industry. I don't even go to the conventions anymore. But it does seem to me that there's a stratification now in podcasts. There are the very high-end Joe Rogans and Emma Chamberlains and Caller Daddies of the world, who, of course, can get $1 million for an ad and have real, interstitial ads. And then there's almost all the rest of us. I think direct ad insertion, which Spotify's doing, Libsyn's doing, probably is how 99% of podcasts will monetize.
Well, and I talk
you and I are right on the cusp, right? We're not the Joe Rogans of the world, but we're not quite. But we're looking more and more at DAI plus membership being
and membership is a big deal. And I think, and I talk about this on the Riverside YouTube channel, if you want to monetize your show and you're just starting or have a small audience, do the direct membership and just provide amazing benefits for people that want to pay you directly. And you do have to sell them on it, but we offer ad-free episodes, we offer bonus episodes, you can offer private community access like a Discord, and you can make that membership really appealing. So you can do it with membership, you can do it with the DAI if you want to do the dynamic ad insertion, but I think there's still room. And the reason why video is pushed so much is because it is harder to grow that audio side than it is video. And so if you do video, you can be on YouTube, you can monetize with AdSense there. Might not be a lot of money, but it also is appealing then to sponsors because you could say your ad is not only going to be in the audio version that gets this many downloads, but it's also going to be in the video and we might get that many views. So that's why there's such a big push towards video.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good idea. Maybe we should start a club ourselves. I think that's a clever.
And people always say Apple Podcast does video, and they mention MacBreak Weekly, and they mention TWiT, and I said, I know that they've been doing the dual RSS feed for many years.
Yeah, my thought was always get our shows to everywhere we possibly can, so that people can watch it any way they want. But we're always reluctant to let companies host the feed because then we don't get metrics. But that's why Spotify wants to do it. They want all the metrics. They want to know who you are, when you listened, how much you listened, and all of that stuff. Hey, you know what we haven't done? The Vision Pro segment.
What do you see? What do you know? It's time to talk the Vision Pro.
It's not the longest segment this week. But since we didn't do it last week, Apple has now released a TV Plus trailer with the first ever full-length immersive film. How long can
it's the trailer for it. I don't think it's out until June.
No, yeah. This is the Bono Stories of Surrender concert-style documentary event. It'll be the first feature. So you'll have to wear the helmet. How long for this thing?
Also, you won't be able to delete it from your account, just like that YouTube ad back in the day.
It's just going to be given to you.
Honey, what's the Edge doing in our kitchen?
Well, what's funny is, what's interesting is to see the pattern of bands that have been out for a while that have been very good at always jumping on the next new thing. So U2 and Metallica are two examples of bands that are constantly looking at how they evolve their brand, right? And how do they keep on doing it? And so first you saw Metallica, then now you see now you see YouTube. But
you liked how the Metallica video was done, right?
I like parts of it. I think that parts of it were great. I mean, when you look at anybody's work, but especially Apple's right now, and especially on something that no one's ever done before, you look at a bunch of things and you go, I'll never do that. That's a bad idea. But then you look at things that you wouldn't have done that you absolutely would take and do again, like the James walking onto the he walks through this piece and onto this opening. I would have never done that. Moving a camera like that is against all the rules that I've that I've been doing for the last 10 years doing immersive, but it worked, totally worked. And I don't, and now I have to admit, it does feel like you can feel your stomach pulling in. If they went any faster, you'd be like, oh, that's too much. The audience shots, the wide shots, maybe a wide shot once, but too many wide shots, the audience shots are worthless. There's a bunch of shots, the drums are too close. But there's a handful of shots. There's this one shot with James is also like looking, playing in the band. People are reaching up towards him, and the dimensionality of that really, really works. And so, and they ran into lots of challenges. Like they didn't get the guitar for Enter the Sandman, and I'm pretty sure it's because they had all those bouncing balls.
They were no way.
I was like, why didn't they get the solo? Because you can hear the solo going on. You're like, why are they not showing it?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's the balls. The balls.
I really enjoyed watching that Metallica concert in Apple Vision Pro, and that's one of the things. Whenever there's new immersive content, I charge it up and I put it on.
Yeah.
The beach ball's super stressful. Like that whole time I was just feeling for all the security people. But all those wide shots, I was looking for the immersive cameras. That's what I was doing. Whenever it showed the wide audience shot, I was looking for those dual lenses. But immersive content, it's the most compelling thing that I think is Apple Vision Pro can do. And I watch every adventure episode. There was that one that just came out. And I think just experimenting, seeing what can happen. And
this will be interesting because they're going to release it as a 2D film on Apple TV Plus on May 30th. And at the same time, as an immersive video for Vision Pro users.
And it'll be interesting to see how they handle the framing and how they do it. I mean, a lot of it, as far as the time goes, I mean, my biggest problem with the Apple Vision Pro is I get in and I start fiddling. Next thing I know, I've been there for 3 hours, and so it doesn't really.
You don't like
I don't think that that the time is really an issue for me. I will be interested to see how they do that. I think one of the things I was thinking about watching part of the Google Sphere. I don't know if you saw their whole thing in the Sphere. They took the Wizard of Oz and they extended it for the Sphere. So they used AI to make those scenes bigger, and fit them in. And I suddenly realized, oh, wow, you could make every movie immersive.
You could outpaint everything.
Not without painting anything. It'd be expensive. Like you'd have people doing some part of it by hand, part of it by AI. It would still cost millions of dollars per unit to do it. It's not like it's going to be free, but if you started producing, like if you built because if you think about it, if you start creating, if you start letting AI recreate the entire scene based on the camera angles. So as the camera angles move, it figures out everything's there and then puts it back into the scene and makes that whole scene bigger. That in a way that you could sit there and watch it. I realized that they could do that with a lot of films, and it would be really interesting to see how that looks. But what I'm really fascinated by is what will the Apple TV version feel like and look like compared to what the immersive version looks like and feels like.
But wouldn't that's an interesting proposition, but wouldn't that be anti-creator? because the shot was composed that way because that's what the director wanted you to see at that moment. Also, the set or the scene that the shot takes place in, the art director decided to place objects where they need to go. If you have an AI, that's filling in, I decided that there's a bedroom behind you, and here's what the bedroom is decorated like. Is that going to be consistent? Secondly, if the director said, "Look, I don't want you looking at this photo that's on the nightstand generated by AI. You're supposed to be looking at these two people arguing."
Well, I think that the number one is that they're doing the Wizard of Oz one with the copyright holders and with the people who own it and everything else. And also, the question is, are the people, if the directors were here today, the ones that worked on it, would they use the latest technology? And many of them probably would. But you'll have to go back to the copyright holders and look at it. And it's not going to be something that you just hit a button and it goes. I'm sure that while Google talked about it being, AI, it's not like it's AI like Midjourney. It's AI like very complex, working with the license holders and putting that stuff together. And I think that, it could be really interesting. And it won't, there'll be some license holders that go, no, you can't change that movie, can't do that, you can't move that through. But a lot of them are, taking older films, for instance, and making them 3D, and they look bad, in 3D, but they did it anyway. And they didn't ask, they asked, it's whoever owns the rights to the film I mean, at some point that becomes the artistic intent. It
can get iffy. It's always a clean thing if the original creators are there and then can either sign off saying do what you want, I don't care, or can be involved in it. It's a problem when you're suddenly deciding that we're going to redo Casablanca, and I don't care that the company that made Casablanca was bought by this company that was bought by this company that has given approval for the marketing to create this as an immersive experience. It's not, of all the sins that one can create in one lifetime, that's not really high on the list, but it's worth discussing. The only opposition I would have is if we just simply say, oh, of course, push that button. There's no consequences. There's no reason to even think about this. But I agree with you that the bad stuff will be found out really quickly and nobody cared. Just like original colorization, the bad version of colorization died very quickly because it was horrible and nobody wanted it. However, if you have a modern situation where people are not going to watch this simply because it is black and white, but they might watch it if it looks like 1940s color, that's also consideration.
Well, and I do think that, the Wizard of Oz is still making whatever money it's making for the copyright holders, but if you had an immersive version that was in 3D, that was totally, a lot of people would buy that.
Oh, of course.
every Vision Apple Vision Pro user that knew that it existed would buy it because it's at $10 or $20 or $30. I don't think it would matter, just because they would, because it is a, that would be an amazing experience to see. And I think that's I do think that what Apple's kind of moving towards. I think Apple's mostly looking at this is an original film, and as the new Blackmagic camera comes out, you're going to see more original films getting produced.
Will there be dual release like this one, where you see a 2D and a 3D version?
I think this is this is part of it, but I think that a lot of it's going to be too complicated to do that, and I think that for the most part, you're going to start seeing short films.
Yeah.
Every time you start to compromise between two mediums, you end up just getting the lowest common denominator. And so I think that, taking advantage of that, I think you're going to see first short films and, other little experiments and little mini concerts and so on and so forth. But as the camera starts to roll out, I think you're going to start to see some pretty impressive videos. But I think that what I didn't think about is the fact that you could go into the whole old library and I don't think Apple at first would do a whole movie, but I can imagine them taking a scene from The Wizard of Oz or a scene from some movie and just extending. Because what's funny is the old movies are actually easier to do this with because the camera doesn't move very much.
Yeah.
So taking an old film that's locked off and extending it out is actually a much easier puzzle than doing it again.
Yeah. And just go ahead.
No, we're going to wrap up.
I was going to say, and to be fair, I'm fascinated by these topics because it keeps coming up decade after decade. And remember the first time that Fred Astaire They took a scene from Fred Astaire in the Barclays of Broadway where he's dancing down a flight of stairs with a cane, and decided, hey, what if we change that to a stick vacuum cleaner, and it becomes a vacuum cleaner ad, and like people are absolutely aghast. Oh, it's a sin, ignoring the fact that Fred had very, very good legal representation and state representation, and he had explicitly put into his will that, hey, look, if you want to reuse and readapt my old stuff to advertise stuff and generate money, go ahead and do it. I don't want to. I find it an interesting academic discussion about how do you preserve the original intent and respect the original intent, even if you think that, wow, it'll be great if we upscale this. It would be great if we, instead of having subtitles for this, we were able to regenerate the lip movements to match this new language that it has to go in. At the same time, sometimes the reason why the creators want to do these new technologies, such as I want to colorize this, such as I want to license this music for commercial purposes and commercials, is that, look, right now this is on the shelf and nobody's watching it because it's in black and white, or no one's listening to this track because it's a 40 or 50-year-old piece of music. If we allow it to be in a Nike ad, people will listen to this John Lennon track that they had not been able to listen to before. They wouldn't have listened to before. If this movie is in color, maybe they will watch it, whereas instead of just dismissing it as, oh, here's an old movie that I don't care about. So it's a complicated thing. I just find the academic discussion really interesting.
And that, by the way, no truth to the rumor that Siri is going to be renamed Bono. That's something Tim wanted, but it's not going to happen. That's your Vision Pro segment
Now
for
you
this
see,
week.
now you know, we're done talking the Vision Pro.
I do want to mention that thing that you invented in your brain there, Stephen Robles, the idea of a club with is something we've been doing for 4 years now, and it's worked out so well for us. It's now 25% of our revenue, and thank goodness, because if it weren't for Club TWiT, I don't know if we'd be able to keep doing the shows that we do with the people we have, the team that we have. You've kept everybody employed. Thank you, club members. If you're not yet a club member, here's the pitch. $7 a month, $84 a year, gets you ad-free versions of all of our shows, gets you access to that Discord, that social group that Stephen was talking about. We also do special programming, just like Stephen said, Micah's Crafting Corner coming up next week, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific. That's where you get together with Micah and work on your own craft. He's working on Lego succulents, but you could do crocheting, painting, whatever you're coding, whatever you're in the mood for. Stacy's book club is also on the 16th. Really good book. I really enjoyed Ursula K. Le Guin's The Word for World is Forest. It's short. It's a novella, so there's still time to read it for next week, and I would encourage that. We also will be covering keynotes. In fact, that's part of the news is all of our keynote coverage will now be club only. It'll only be inside the Club TWiT Discord, and that's just to avoid the takedowns that we've been getting from Apple. So the first chance to do that will be Microsoft Build on May 19th at 9 a.m. Pacific. Then the next day, Google I.O. at 10 a.m. Pacific. I'm getting together with the Giz Wiz for a special hangout. Dick D. Bartolo, lots of stories, anecdotes, and even some old jingles. May 23rd, 1 p.m. Pacific. And then we are going to do our AI users group. We do that every first Friday of every month. Monthly on the first Friday. Okay. So we did it. We just did it. The next one will be June 6th. And WWDC shortly thereafter, June 9th. Micah and I will do our coverage of the Worldwide Developers Conference. Again, in the Club TWiT Discord. You're going to have to be a member if you want to watch our traditional coverage where we stream the keynote and then talk about it. And because we're doing it in the club, we're going to have, I think, not only the morning keynote, but we'll do the State of the Union keynote and just take up the whole day. Mike and I will just hang out with you. And because it's in the club, you'll get to be a part of the conversation now as a club member. $7 a month. Promise that you will be grandfathered in if we raise the price. We're looking at that right now as costs go up and ad revenue goes down. So it could go up in the next few months, but if it does, you're guaranteed to stay at that $7 a month if you join now. twit.tv/Club TWiT. We'd love to have you in the club. Our picks of the week are coming up next on MacBreak Weekly. Stephen Robles filling in for Jason Snell. It's been great having the bearded tutor in our studios with us, along with Alex Lindsay and Andy Ihnatko. And, of course, great to have you as well. Our show today brought to you by Storyblock. I think if you've ever worked in an enterprise, if you've ever done marketing, or created a website of any kind, you know the pain of legacy content management systems, CMSs. They promise enterprise-grade features, but what do they give you? Delivering slow, clunky systems that often need developer support for even the smallest update. And when you're trying to move fast, that's no good. Storyblock changes that. Unlike those monolithic CMSs, Storyblock is headless. This is such a good idea. It's what we did for our website and backend. It really works. Decouple your backend from your front end. So developers can build in any framework they like, React, Astro, Vue, whatever, while marketers can use an intuitive, a really nice CMS, visual editor to create and update content without filling out dev tickets. Storyblock scales whether you're a freelancer or part of a global enterprise. They have, of course, a global CDN, AWS data centers in the US, Europe, and Asia. It's built for performance at scale, but it's also comfy for its users. It's really nice. Storyblock is enterprise ready. They've got role-based access control, enterprise SLAs, top-tier security, all the stuff Fortune 500s demand. One global e-commerce giant switched to Storyblock and cut content update cycles from weeks to hours. It's a remarkable success story. You can read more about it on the website. Another major brand empowered marketing to launch campaigns independently, freeing up devs for bigger projects. Storyblock has an API-first approach. Your content loads fast anywhere in the world. That means better UX, higher engagement, improved SEO. And that beautiful real-time visual editor means marketers can see exactly what their content will look like before publishing. No more endless back and forth over minor tweaks. Devs, you get fewer interruptions. Marketers, you get more autonomy. So it's a win-win. Oh, and if you're an agency, Storyblock offers multi-client workspaces, flexible permissions, and seamless collaboration tools so you can manage multiple projects without disrupting development workflows. Whether you're a startup, an enterprise, or an agency juggling multiple clients, Storyblock gives you the power and flexibility you need. Try it today at storyblock.com/TWiTTV-25 and use the code TWiT25. TWiT listeners will get 20% off for 3 months on Growth and Growth Plus plans. That's storyblock.com/TWiTTV-25. The offer code TWiT25 for 20% off the first 3 months on Growth and Growth Plus plans. storyblock.com/TWiTTV-25. And don't forget that offer code TWiT25 for 20% off for 3 months on Growth and Growth Plus plans. Thank you, Storyblock. We appreciate the support. All right. Oh, nice. Dr. Do gives Storyblock his endorsement. Thank you, Dr. Do. Good sponsor, he says. He apparently has used them. Nice. Time for our picks of the week. And, of course, as our guest, Stephen Robles, I think you should go first.
Well, thank you very much. I'll do 2 quick ones if I could. I'm obsessed with MagSafe batteries. This is a portion of my collection.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And there's one actually I'm testing right now on my iPhone. So there's a 7th, and then I have about 10 more in the closet. Anyway, I actually saw the last time I was on, I made a MagSafe recommendation.
Does Apple still make theirs?
No, and many people bemoan it because if they were to update this with USB-C, it would be a good deal. It would be a good deal.
I still have mine.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend? Because I just bought the Anchor. It's big and heavy and thick, but it is Type-C.
Well, which Anchor is the question?
Well, it's a big, heavy. I think it's a newer one because it's 10,000. I think.
Last time I recommended this Anchor, which is
that's bigger than that. This one,
yeah, this one's a big one. But the one I would recommend now, and it might be the one you have. This is Anchor's Ultra Slim.
Yeah, that's the one I have. I just got it. Yeah,
it is the best one. I just did some tests.
Yay!
Yesterday.
I did the right thing.
Oh, it's the best one.
Best one? Ooh.
I was testing multiple yesterday, and most battery packs, even if they say 15 watts fast charging wirelessly, it's not true. They'll charge at maybe 5 or 7.5 watts, and you can just look at the charging graphs like in your settings to know, like, oh, this is not fast. I actually have one from another creator that I tested, and the iPhone will actually tell you if it's a slow charger. If you go to settings, battery, it'll say, this is a slow charger. You might want to reconsider. So this Anchor one, it's Qi 2, which means it doesn't get as hot. It actually charges faster. It'll bring your iPhone from 1% battery. I just did this yesterday. 1% battery to 90% in about 2+ hours. So really fast charging for a wireless battery. And I've had this one for a while. So would highly recommend this one. It's 60 something bucks on Amazon, and don't fall for all the other ones. Just get this Anchor one.
I bought the black one. That's why it says purchased. I just got it April 27th.
There you go, purchased. Yeah,
look at that.
It is the best one. And,
I'm very happy with it. It's heavy. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But boy, if you want to keep your phone going, I went to a baseball game and it was almost dead by the end of the day, and so I thought I need this.
Yeah, it's helpful. Yeah. And real quick, this one, you can't get it yet, but this one, Moft sent me their new dynamic folio for iPad. And this thing is like an origami case. And so it has a bunch of magnets in it, and you can do this, so you can stand it up. And I've done this a lot just to like watch something with it or whatever. But then you can do like more stuff. Like I can fold this over, and now it's more of like kind of a...
that's cool.
I might do my podcast editing on my iPad with Ferrite on here or drawing. And then it's got a bunch of other like configurations. And so you can do this and like put your iPhone here and while you're working on your desk. And this one, it's on Kickstarter right now. I'm not sure when it's releasing, but it should be soon. They sent me this, and it is really cool.
MOFT.
Yeah, Moft.
Moft.
So I've been using, they sponsored a video a couple months ago, but I've been using it now every day, and I really love it. So I recommend once it comes out. It should
be out. They're saying next month, so or maybe this month, May 2025. So
there you
soon.
Go.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Nice, and not expensive. $34 if you go through the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah, and it's nice. It's durable, and
the only thing I have a Kobo with the origami case, and I feel like an idiot trying to fold it. Is it?
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I like about it. So they put little icons on the blue part.
Oh, very smart.
And they say if you forget how to fold it, just match the icons with each other, and it really helps. Like
I need that
to remember how to fold it.
I need that because
I usually don't like origami cases.
Make me feel like a moron.
This one doesn't do that. This one helps you out, so I appreciate that.
I'm going to throw one in because people have often complained that I'm late all the time, and I don't want to be late. But now there is a way with my iPhone to not be late. It's Lately 2.0 for people with ADHD or just people like me who have a hard time being on time. It will remind you to leave and then say, and no, really leave. No, leave. No, leave now. Leave. It knows where you're going. This is such a clever little app. I think it's a very good idea. Lately, the version 2.0 just came out. Of course, I'll still be late, but now I have no excuse. It gives you a countdown showing how much time you have left. So you see the little progress bar, so you can just see it whittling away as you get later and later and later. I think this is a brilliant idea. Solves a problem certainly that I have lately 2.0, and I can't remember if it cost me anything or not. I think it wasn't. Let's see.
I need a way to send that anonymously to family members.
Yeah, it's like...
I was going to say,
exactly.
If you're on a family plan and an app like this suddenly appears on your phone,
yeah,
that's one step closer to divorce, man.
Maybe
that's a frank
sign.
Discussion that needs to happen immediately.
I am that guy. I am often late. I got it for myself. Mr. Andy Anako, how about your pick of the week?
Mine is a free notes app. I've been for a few years now. I've been making a conscious effort to, every time I get an idea for something I'd like to write, or just a thought that is worth jotting down, capture in a note. Okay, that's easy. Everybody does that. I've been using Google Keep for that. And I've realized that that's become an unwieldy way to dip into this inventory of ideas, particularly when it's like articles and blog posts and things I'd like to write. I was trying to do that in Ulysses, which I'm sure there's a really great way to do it. But I also found that, okay, so now it's a lot of work to keep the things that are just notes separate and distinct from the things that are actual things that are in progress. So I decided that I need to keep the factory floor, Ulysses being the factory floor, clean, that only has projects that are actually in progress. So I've been looking for a dedicated notes app that will be just for capturing, again, these ideas. And I seem to have settled on Joplin. It's an open source notes app. And here are the reasons why I settled on it. One, it's free. It is open source and it's free. It's multi-platform. Apple Notes, for instance, would be an absolute non-starter because I can't be locked on to just iOS and Mac OS. It doesn't try to be like Evernote, which is your all-in-one personal information, project information, and calendaring app. No, I just need the quickest possible pipeline between, oh, that's a good idea, I should write this down before I forget it, and boom, it's a note that's synced between every single one of my devices and the cloud. It is free. You can get it for, you can pay them for cloud syncing service, or hey, it's open source. You can just simply say, hi, here's my Dropbox. Please put everything on a folder here, and it will automatically sync through. It's worked pretty well. I think it has just enough features to do the thing that I want it to do. Your notes can be in Markdown. You can add PDFs. You can add images. That's not pretty much what I want to do with it, but at least it has that sort of stuff. It is open source, but every time I try out something that's open source, my biggest worry is, how open sourcey is it? Does it look like a Unix terminal app from a Sun Microsystems device in 1997? Or does it actually look like a modern Mac/Android/desktop app? It's only a little bit open sourcey. It works just fine. And again, as an idea of having a dedicated place that lets me capture and organize notes, where this is not the factory floor. When I need to think, okay, I need to put something on the editorial calendar for 2 weeks from now. Let's see what I got to fill in my Thursday slot. Oh, actually, that's a good idea. Let's put that in there. Just enough features to make it useful, but the features that go beyond just simply capturing and organizing notes are one step behind the surface, so they don't screw you up. So, and again, it's free. Go to joplinapp.org. It's in the App Store. It's in the Google Play Store. You can get it as a Mac app, whatever, and at least give it a try. And I put all 400 something of my Google Notes, Google Keep docs that were tagged as ideas. I imported them all in there. Actually, this is why I was so excited to talk to Alex about ChatGPT and Gemini for stuff like that, because that was a point where I used to know how to write to a text file from AppleScript, but it's giving me errors no matter what I do. And that's when Gemini said, yeah, I don't know why that's not working either. Hi, let's brainstorm other ideas. What if you just actually had send it as a command line to, now it's actually working. Thank you, Gemini. So I've got all 400 of my notes in there, and it's been working fine for the past couple of weeks. So
I used Joplin for a long time. I have a bad habit of going from note taker to note taker.
Yeah, me too.
Obsidian and Logseek and Joplin and Roam and on and on and on. I really liked Joplin. I forgot why I stopped using it. Maybe I should.
I checked out Obsidian, but it's super powerful, but you really have to. I think you have to be part of the cult to get it to do exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
Simple Note from Automatic is free, but it's not powerful. It's just short of powerful enough for what I want to do with it. And you and I are in the same boat. It's like every time there's a brand new Notes app, I at least got to check it out just to see. And that's the big thing. That means that you're not actually becoming more productive by investigating new productivity apps, because you are now eating most of your time by looking at new productivity apps. No, stick with the one that brought you and get the actual work done. And
I do like it that Joplin has a nodes based command line interface as well, so you really can use it everywhere. That's part of the open sourciness I like, because oh god, how am I going to get these 400 notes in there? Well, you can just point it to a folder full of text files, and it'll import each one of these text files as a separate note, saying, Google Keep allows me to turn all of those into a Google Doc, which I can then save as a text file, which I can then parse into separate files, I bet, using an Apple script. Open source stuff lets you do that, as opposed to, that's great. You should definitely add it to our features list on our membership blog, and we'll get to it sometime. All it takes is a pull request, Andy. That's all it takes.
You are so close to being helpful. I want to encourage you, but you're so close to being helpful.
Thank you, Andy Anako. I agree. Joplin, really a great choice. I think it's really cool. Alex Lindsay, that leaves you. What's your pick of the week?
It does show you how sticky things are. I've been using Notes for so long that a big chunk of I could never use another platform.
It's a great app.
is that it's so good, and the problem is that there's so much in it that I'm like,
Notes
every time I
amazing.
leave, every time I go to a PC, I'm like, I can't do it.
Right.
Can I just quickly say that that's even before I switched from iPhone to Android, I noticed how much I was dependent on Apple Notes. And I said, but what if there's a better app out there, but I won't be able to switch to it because I'm so stuck in Apple Notes. And that's when I weaned myself off of it. And also made it easy to switch to Android when I decided I wanted to do that.
Experimented at it, but I was like, I can't find anything that I like better.
It's a great app. There's nothing wrong with it.
So well written. My pick is Midjourney 7 and specifically OmniReference. So what OmniReference does is it allows you to, I'll show you an example here. I used Leo as an example.
Now I'm in trouble.
It lets you take an image. So I just grabbed this image.
Oh no!
Downloaded it
Show
here.
Alex's.
He looks so happy before you're going to do whatever you're going to do to him.
I thought it'd be better if he was.
Oh, nice! It even took the smile away because I'm a dead serious jet airplane fighter pilot.
There you are in the cockpit. You're just being nice here. There you're a little more serious. They're not all perfect. This one's a little,
No, it doesn't. It's looking less like me.
Yeah,
well, that's not too bad.
But if in a group of other ones,
that was all from that one picture.
Yeah, this is all from the one picture.
Because it's getting different angles and stuff. That's pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's all, that one's a little odd there. But there you are with casting a spell. I thought that would be useful. I don't know what you're playing. I guess playing a game here. Another casting spell.
I like the monk Leo. I think that's good.
So I turned up the make sure that you can turn the scale up of like how hard, and because you had kind of a smile, it gave you kind of this crazy look.
Monk smirk.
That was kind of like, hi, how you doing? Hi, how's it going there? Another one with the pilot there. I was playing with kind of a different weight there. I just did this. I literally did these while we were talking. Wow. Like it was, like all of that happened.
Is so amazing. I mean, we've come a long way from how many fingers does it have? They've really
it still has some finger problems. Like it's not completely I figured that out, but it is but it's much better. And this new OmniReference is out of control. Like you can just sit there and it'll get all kinds of different versions of it. So it's pretty slick. So I think I took an older photo of my, let's see if I can pull it up here. I don't know if I can, this was me playing around a little bit. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just going to take a second here. One of the things I wanted to do was I think for education, being able to visualize things would be really interesting. So I gave it pictures of Vietnam and asked it to use that as the style, but then I prompted it to give me the Civil War. Like, so then you end up with images like that. So it's like
confusing the hell out of people. Yes.
But it's
I like the new uniform style.
Yeah, exactly. Still working on that.
Some of the reference photos are reenactors.
That's true.
But here's the photo I grabbed from that I had laying around, and then you have all these different, and it's really getting different views of the whole thing, and it's kind of an amazing thing that it's rebuilding all that geometry. Like it's not. And then, of course, you can do selfies with the president, which is, important. So, but
you look like Matthew, what's his name? The daguerreotype guy.
Matthew Brady.
But can we do it? Matthew Brady, can we do a selfie, Mr. President, before I shoot your portrait?
Yeah. So anyway, but it's come a long way, and it's just an amazing demo app. I don't find I use a lot of it for anything final, but to brainstorm and to think about what things look like. And I think for pitches, but also for education, for other things, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So
I just realized I've been paying for a Midjourney subscription for the last 2 years.
I would recommend it. The only one that I have, the one that's, I pay per year, and it's like $50 a month. So it's like charges a lot at one time, but it just means that I just have a lot of hours there. I have 30 hours that I can use every month, and I use them all up. There's sometime in the last couple of days I go, oh, I'm out. Like I now have to go back to slow.
You're so good you are a Midjourney whiz. I mean, you really do a great job.
It's just practice. I mean, and learning what it likes to do and what it doesn't. And I do a lot of things where I just go through the explore. The great thing about Midjourney is it shows you, there's a section in it where you just go explore, and then it just shows you what everybody else is doing, and it shows you all their prompts. so you sit there and go, oh, I see what they did there, and I see how they got that imagery.
That's evil. I admire that, and I would like to replicate it.
Yeah, like a lot of times people achieve some look like a sketch look or a cartoony look or like this other look, and you then dig into their prompts to figure out what did you say to do that? So,
very nice. Midjourney
it's Midjourney 7, and specifically the thing that I would recommend playing with is Omni reference if you have access to
But
it.
what's the website? I know you could do it in Discord. Midjourney.com. Okay.
Yeah, you can go. It's funny. I don't use the Discord version anymore. I thought it was great, but then now that the web version has so many extra tools and things and everything else that it's really hard.
It's got
to go back
all
to
the
Discord.
interface stuff that you would need. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's pretty amazing.
In fact, a little easier perhaps to use than the Discord. You don't have to remember all those prompts.
Much easier. And there's some editing tools now in the web that I'm not talking about right here, but you can now bring in layers. You can, grab on, change certain sections. There's a lot of the editing tools now are also pretty intense.
I got to set up the personalization first.
I don't.
Do you use
V7?
V7? Is that the one you want?
Yeah, I use V7, but I don't use the personalization.
You haven't personalized it.
No.
You teach it what you like.
Yeah, I tell it this is what I want. This is the reference. I don't want it to look at something old. I just want it to look at like I'm giving you some style. I'm going to give you some references, and I want you to do those things. I don't want you to think about other things that I may have wanted in the past.
You could do a mood board. Yeah, I want something brand new. Yeah.
Yeah. So I but the but like for instance, we were playing around with
oh God
storyboards this morning.
I took a picture from my youth of my mom and dad when they were young, and I said, update this to be 90-year-olds.
Oh no!
And it did. They don't look like my mom and dad, but
looks like somebody's mom and dad, right?
This is the somebody's mom and dad. This is the original,
right?
Quite a bit later. That's fun though that you could do stuff like that. I think this is really cool. Yeah. And you have choices, obviously. Wow, and this is so much improved over the last time.
And if you click on it, if you click on one of those, you'll get a full size view, and then you see there's edit tools there. And now
subtle,
you get edit,
upscale.
You get edit there. You'll start to see all the extra tools that are available to you. And
apparently my dad looks like Kevin Spacey now, so that's good. There you go. Yeah, this is interesting. Yeah, very nice. Midjourney.com. I would say, would you say it's still the best image AI? I mean, there are a lot of good image tools.
It depends. So I use a lot of different ones. So if I'm trying to do something specific, then I'd go to ChatGPT because I can sit there and say something and it's much more accurate. Like, do what I ask you to do, and I can say change this, change this, change this. I don't like this. I don't like that. It's not quite as talented, but it's not as nutty. So Midjourney is kind of like your nutty uncle. Like you're like, hey, do this, and it goes, oh, how about this? And you're like, that's great. Do another one. It's something completely different. And but the ChatGPT is a little bit more focused. It won't produce the same quality image, in my opinion. But what it does do is it's much more specific and much more. And then for design, Leonardo.ai does better about like logo design and more graphics design and so on and so forth. And then you have, when you start to Wonder Dynamics and Kling and Lemon and a couple other ones that for animation, Wonder Dynamics from Autodesk as well, where you can start to put those animations together based on the content that you're creating. But oftentimes, as an image resource, Midjourney is kind of still my favorite as far as producing a really beautiful image.
Yeah, I mean, horses for courses. We're not yet at the point where you could say this is the one.
No,
and you should try them all, really.
Well, and you figure out as you start to play with them, you start to figure out which ones are the
strengths and weaknesses,
which ones are stronger. Yeah. And like for instance, ChatGPT is my daily, like all day. It's opened all the time. I'm asking it questions. But if I'm programming, I've kind of moved to Claude for most of that. And so, ChatGPT does a great job, but Claude is more accurate. So you just kind of keep evolving with all of these. I don't know where the answer is going to end up.
Thank you, Alex. OfficeHours.global is the place to find Alex Lindsay. What's going on in the old office hours these days?
We do this thing every morning. We meet and we talk and we answer questions and then off we go.
And then off we go.
That's pretty much
that's the story.
That's pretty much what we're it's a pretty straightforward process. But yeah, a lot of Q&A. That's what we've been doing for
cooking
5
and
years now.
Music on Saturdays and just all sorts of stuff.
The Saturdays have calmed down, and once we got out, so it's still that first hour. The one that I enjoy a lot also is Sunday. Sunday is more philosophical. We don't put it on YouTube, so you can't see it, and it's more of a kind of a private conversation about what people like about office hours, what they don't like about office hours. Philosophical questions about the industry, and so we kind of have, so it's a much more freewheeling thing. That's the Sunday sessions.
Can you join as in the past by going to officehours.global and
you just go to officehours.global/join, and you can sign up, and then you'll start getting emails, and they'll have links to our Discord. We've got about 2,200 people in Discord, and then we have so our Discord and then you get links to where to go see the show, all of those things.
Very nice. officehours.global. Thank you, Alex. And of course, if you want to hire Alex, 090.media. There is nobody better at this kind of thing. Andy Anako, anything you would like to plug?
Anako.com is proceeding. WWDC is next month. It seems like it would be a good time to.
Would you like to join us for our keynote coverage?
I think I would.
Okay, well, come on in. We, as I mentioned, we're going to try doing the State of the Union as well, which means a marathon. But you can come and go as you wish.
I'm a zephyr. I'm the wind, baby.
Floating in and out. Thank you, Andrew. And Stephen, thank you. It's so great to see you. Stephen Robles, the bearded tutor. He does the Primary Tech Show. Where's the best place to find that, Stephen?
Yeah, you can go to primarytech.fm or search Primary Technology anywhere. We're on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, all of that. And beard.fm has my links to everything I do if you want to visit that.
He's all FM all the time.
That's it.
I used to have leo.am. But I gave it up for FM, for the higher fidelity. Yeah. Very nice. Anything else you want to mention? I definitely recommend your YouTube episode on Siri versus Perplexity. Really some good tips there. I think we're all getting more comfortable with and getting better at using AI now. And there's some great opportunities out there.
For sure. I also did a recent video on Bear Notes. We were just talking about Bear.
Oh, I love Bear Notes.
Yeah. And, I did a comparison to Apple Notes. So, yeah, that's up on the channel, too.
Ah, very good. Yeah, we've recommended Bear in the past. It's very good markdown editor. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Stephen. Great to see you. Jason Snell will be back next week. I hope you will as well. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. We will be here in the chair streaming, and you can watch us live. You don't have to, but if you want to, club members can watch in our Club Twit Discord. We're also on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, X.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Kick. Watch where you want. Chat with us there because I see a combined chat of all the different channels. So that's the main reason to watch live, is to chat with other people who are watching live and with all of us. But after the fact, of course, you can get a copy of the show, audio or video, at our website, twit.tv/MBW. Yes, indeed, you can subscribe in Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever your favorite podcast client is, audio or video for those. There's also a YouTube channel dedicated to the video, and that I mentioned because it's very handy. If you saw something you wanted, like, oh, I want to tell my friend about this Don't Be Late application, you can clip it. You can clip it from the YouTube and send it. It's a very easy way to share it. It does a nice thing for us. It shares the show as well as the content of the show. So if you want to do that, please, you'll find us on YouTube. All of our shows have a dedicated YouTube channel. Join the club. If you're not already a member, twit.tv/clubtwit. To our Club Twit members, thank you so much for making all of this possible. We will be back next week. I hope you will be too. But now it is my sad and solemn duty to have to say, get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye. No matter how much spare time you have, twit.tv has the perfect tech news format for your schedule. Stay up to date with everything happening in tech and get tech news your way with twit.tv. Start your week with This Week in Tech for an in-depth, comprehensive dive into the top stories every week. And for a midweek boost, Tech News Weekly brings you concise, quick updates with the journalists breaking the news. Whether you need just the nuts and bolts or want the full analysis, stay informed with twit.tv's perfect pairing of tech news programs.